One of my favorite Superman stories is Camelot Falls by Kurt Busiek and Carlos Pacheco, and it doesn't get talked about enough. But that's what we're going to talk about today, a story about perseverance and hope in the face of absolute doom. How does Superman react when a time-traveling sorcerer tells him that Superman's good deeds are going to bring about the end of humanity? Well, that's what Camelot Falls is all about. I'll be spoiling this story, so I highly recommend you check out the Camelot Falls comic before you watch this video, because it's an amazing comic book, and I also won't be going over every little detail in the story, just the meat and potatoes of it. There's your spoiler warning, so let's actually get into it now. So it opens up with a splash page where I always thought Superman looked like Namor here. I love Carlos Pacheco's pencils on this book, but in this particular page, I think Superman looks a little off, looks more like Namor than Superman. But anyways, this story takes place right after Superman comes back after Infinite Crisis and Up and Away. If you remember Infinite Crisis, big storyline in the DC universe, Superman ended up losing his powers during that because of flying through a kryptonite asteroid field and a red sun. And then in Up and Away was the story where it took place a year after Infinite Crisis and he finally got his powers back. So this is right after Up and Away. Clark is getting back into the swing of things and having to balance that life of being Superman and Clark, because during Up and Away, he was focusing on being Clark because he didn't have Superman's power, so he became the best reporter at the planet. And now he's going back to having to balance that life, and it's come at the cost of his job. He's not doing so. He still works at the planet, but he's not doing so well. But Perry tells Clark about two former flames of his that have interesting stories that need to be written, but he won't give Clark the assignments unless he proves himself, because Clark has been failing as of late. To prove himself, Clark will need to complete all of the low-level crappy assignments that no one else wants, and he'll have to get them on Perry's desk by the end of the day. Lois also doesn't seem too happy about Clark potentially talking to his ex-girlfriends. This first issue also takes place during Clark and Lois's first flight anniversary, so it was the first time Clark and Lois ever flew together, first time Superman ever took Lois up in his arms and flew, so it's pretty important, but Clark fails to do something special for that, because again, he's trying to get back into the swing of things. That's something that was really cool about Up and Away, is Lois talked about how nice it was to have Clark around. She didn't have to share him with the world anymore, and he was a much better husband and a better reporter because of it, because he didn't have to devote so much to the rest of the world being Superman. But now he doesn't have time for all that. It's a lot harder to balance, and it's hitting his personal life a lot more. Clark fails because while he was gone, Energang got a chokehold on Metropolis, and now that he's back, he has to work twice as hard to thwart them. So he does a bunch of the work and gets half the stories done, but it appears he has failed. So Clark thinks he just failed this assignment and it's going to be bad for him at the planet. But when he gets home to him and Lois's apartment, he sees Lois there with a folder full of stories. She tells Clark that she took all the notes he had and finished his stories for him and submitted them to Perry. She also tells him that she's not worried about his former girlfriends. She says she trusts him with anyone, anywhere. I love the way Kurt Busiek writes Clark and Lois. He has a great handle on their relationship and he really understands the two of them. And I love it because Lois is a very good supporting character to Clark, and she very much does support Clark, and that's something where sometimes writers in modern comics think that it makes a woman weak if she supports her husband, like it's a horrible thing to do, but also vice versa. Clark obviously supports Lois, but people tend to think when they're writing, like for instance Bendis' run, where Lois didn't care about her family at all, no one, it was just so focused on her career to the detriment of her family. It was just so weird, and it felt very out of character, to where this, she knows that Clark going out and stopping Energang is more important than him writing some articles, so she helps him with that. She also has known this guy for a long time, so she knows he's not going to go and cheat on her with his former girlfriend, so she's not like some petty, young girl that's going to be mad at him. They've been together for a while, she knows him, and I love that. The way Busiek writes these two is fantastic. He really has a good handle on their relationship. But now it's time for Clark to go overseas to see one of his ex-girlfriends, Callie. He goes along with several other reporters. One of the other reporters asks Clark why an ex of his is asking to meet him alone so far away from his wife. Clark quickly humiliates this guy in front of the whole plane, and I love it. Clark tells the reporter straight up that he doesn't like him and he doesn't like his paper, and he said there was never anything between him and Callie, and he's like, I want to get back to reading my book. And it's just a great moment, a nice little moment from Clark. Clark can be competent and confident. He doesn't always have to be a bumbling moron. It's great. I love the fact that we get to see Clark do this, because some writers kind of just watch Christopher Reeve's Superman and that's it, and they think that's all there is to Clark, and he's just, he should just be a bumbling idiot all of the time, and that's the only way he can cover for not being Superman. Clark couldn't ever be a competent person ever, and I'm not the biggest fan of that take on Clark. Obviously, he can't be out there being Superman and making it obvious, but he can still be a competent man in his own right, and I love this little moment here. Busiek does a great job with these little character moments. While on the plane, Clark hears Callie calling for Superman's help, so Clark escapes the plane and flies to her. Callie is in rough shape, but she tells him she's happy he showed up, and she always thought Clark and Superman had a deeper connection than Clark ever let on. Clark then saves a bunch of people there, while Callie tells him about what caused this mess. There was a creature that the Kazakhs found in an abandoned Soviet science center that they wanted nothing to do with, so they gave him to her to look into, since her specialty was weird stuff like that. While Clark is saving all these different people, the creature known as Subject 17 that caused all this dismay sucker punches him, and they get in a big fight. While he's fighting, Callie reads off information she found in Subject 17's files. A spaceship crashed somewhere in Russia in 1949. Aboard were 2 aliens, a male who died in the crash and a pregnant female. The female was taken by the military and the baby was saved, but the mother died. The baby was then experimented on for decades. This fight between Superman and Subject is very interesting because it's not a typical superhero brawl. From the beginning, before Superman even has any info on Subject, he talks about how he doesn't want to hurt him, but he wants to put an end to the immediate danger caused by Subject and then find a way to communicate. Then, through their battle, Superman finds out how powerful Subject is and that he has telekinetic abilities, and he just keeps getting stronger the longer the fight goes. Subject questions Superman, asking him why he sides with the humans when he is more like Subject. Clark tries to reason with him, but Subject won't hear it. He just wants to kill everyone. Now, it's obvious here that Subject is a mirror of Clark. They're two sides of the same coin, because Clark landed to a nice family in Kansas. Also, he happens to look human, which is nice, where Subject looks nothing like humans. And he also landed in Russia and wasn't treated so well. So Subject sees some sort of kinship with Superman because, like, you know, you're an alien that landed here. You know how humans are. You know what they're capable of. Why are you siding with them? They're evil. They experimented on me for decades. And he doesn't really understand why Clark is fighting for those people. So it's an interesting dynamic here. It's a pretty even fight until Callie tells Superman that the Soviets controlled Subject through different sonic frequencies. She provides Supes with the exact frequencies and he replicates them to stun Subject, but when he is about to subdue him, the monster disappears and Arion arrives. Arion is an Atlantean mage. When he shows up, he calls Superman an idiot and tells Superman he must obey him or all of Earth is doomed to a living hell caused by Superman. Arion shows Superman and the rest of the Daily Planet crew what will happen in the future. He shows them a villain named Kyber who has been around for a millennium. He has been working in secret for years, but soon he will make plans to destabilize the world. He puts things in motion that cause the most powerful villains to wreak havoc on the world, which causes massive amounts of damage and heroes to die. Of course, when this happens, Superman has enough of it, so he finds Kyber and they fight. They talk about the previous battles and how Superman had defeated him before, but Kyber planned ahead this time. During their brawl, Kyber cracks Superman's lip and then releases nanotechnological poisons that get inside the cut and stun Superman. Kyber tells Superman there was time in their previous fight where he was at the mercy of Superman, but Clark was too soft to him and that he made the wrong choice. Kyber then throws Superman into the earth so hard that it cracks the earth's crust, causing all types of mayhem. Tectonic plates crack, continents ripple like a scarf in the wind, billions die in global earthquakes, tidal waves scour coastal lands, thousands of volcanoes are created, and nuclear winter follows. The world is completely falling apart. Villains are fighting over sections of Earth while Kyber slowly gains control piece by piece. In Metropolis, Lex Luthor leads a resistance with help from Lois, Jimmy, Wonder Woman, and Parasite, who still has some of Superman's memories since he overloaded on Superman's powers years prior. Parasite and Lois have an interesting relationship. Clark has been dead for years at this point, but Parasite still has some of his memories and feelings. He tries to connect with Lois, but she wants nothing to do with him. Parasite won't even absorb anyone else's powers because to do that, he'd have to get rid of what little he has left of Superman. It's really interesting to think about this because you have Parasite who feels the love that Superman felt for Lois, which we know is so strong, and he feels some of that for her. But Lois feels nothing for Parasite because she knows that's not her husband and her husband's dead for years. But also, she knows that some of his memories are in there. So the last little remnants of her dead husband are in this supervillain that he used to fight. And it's fascinating to just think about that and put yourself in the shoes of Lois or Parasite and how would you feel and how would that go. And I love this. I think this is just fascinating to me. We then see Parasite on the battlefield refusing to absorb anyone else's power as he slowly loses his strength. He tells Lois he loves her as he dies, and Lois says goodbye to Clark with a tear in her eye. Just real emotional stuff here, tugging at the heartstrings, thinking about this. I love this aspect to this possible future Again, Kurt Busiek just does some amazing stuff in this comic, and this is why it's one of my favorite Superman stories. Lex and his resistance do a good job of repelling Kyber's forces until Kyber himself shows up. Kyber starts wrecking house, but then Lex challenges him to a 1v1, proclaiming that he is the only one who can stop him, and Kyber agrees. But then Superman shows up and beats Kyber's ass while telling him he almost died, but instead he was just trapped in the Earth's core for years, too weak to move, while molten rocks filled his lungs, throat, and eyes, hearing the apocalypse happen while he was too weak to do anything. So Superman was just in this hellscape, sitting in the Earth's core, not able to do anything, but able to hear all of it. Until now, having leached enough power from the rock, the pressure, the heat, Superman is just absolutely pummeling Kyber, and he tells him Kyber will never take another life, and when it looks like Superman is about to kill him, he pauses and states that no, he can't do it. But Clark, in that moment, remembered that vengeance isn't the answer, and that's why he stopped, but this gave Kyber the opportunity to use all of his power to kill Superman, once and for all. But Kyber is now in a weakened state because he had the crap kicked out of him by Superman. His armor's damaged and he used all of his power to finish off Clark. So Khalid uses the opportunity to take Kyber's life. Khalid is another big player in this comic that I haven't really gone into. But again, I highly recommend you read the comic yourself. You'll get more of Khalid. But he's a sort of yin to Kyber's yang in this story. And because of Superman beating the tar out of Kyber and weakening him enough, Khalid is able to take him out. Sadly, though, with Kyber now dead, nothing really changed. There was a power vacuum, and every nut job in the DC universe tried to fill it. Years later, Lex dies and is buried next to Superman. Over the years, everyone dies off, with Jimmy Olsen the last remaining human. He keeps Lois's journal and makes consistent entries until the day he dies, and that's the end of the future that Arion shows them. Arion explains that bad things are always going to happen to humanity, but the longer Superman holds back these bad things from happening, the more they build up and the worse they are when they eventually occur. He tells him the only way for mankind to live is for him to give up being Superman and let civilization fall. But of course, you think Superman can't just give up on humanity, right? But then also you think he has to give up on humanity to save humanity. It's a very I use the stones to destroy the stones situation, where it's like, what is he going to do here? Because if Superman continues to help humanity through his good deeds that he's doing right now, it's going to result in a horrific end to humanity. But if he doesn't help them, then he has to just sit idly by while people die and horrific things happen, but knowing that that is the lesser evil because humanity will probably keep going. And it's hard to really reconcile with all this because he's seen the future. Ryan showed him a very visceral future that he says is going to happen. So it's a very interesting question that is proposed to Superman, and we get to learn throughout this book what he thinks and what his answer is going to be to Orion. Later on, we learn that Orion teleported Subject 17 into the sky far above Tibet, and he landed in the mountains and sustained serious injuries from the fall. He's been living among the people there, going from village to village, learning how they live, and he finds out they don't know much of the world outside of their villages, but they all know Superman and they all love him. Meanwhile, Superman is searching for answers. He talks to the Daily Planet crew and gets their opinion on the future Orion showed them. He finds Sirocco and asks him about Kyber. Sirocco tells him he killed Kyber a long time ago. This makes Superman wonder if Kyber is even the threat anymore, or if someone else will bring the fall of mankind. Superman continues his search for answers, but gets sidetracked by a group of New God teenagers that randomly show up in Metropolis and start causing havoc. These aren't evil New Gods, they're just dumb kids who are trying to play hero but don't know anything. Superman rounds all the teens up and demands an explanation. Then the Light Ray shows up and explains to Superman that he was taking these kids on a field trip when they abruptly split off from him and headed to Earth. Superman then realizes that this was Orion's doing to try to teach Superman a lesson by having literal god children playing with the lives of others without concern for the damage they might cause. Trying to do a one-to-one comparison of what Superman's doing with humanity right now. Light Ray sees that Superman has a lot on his mind at the moment, so he tells Superman to take the night off and he will handle everything in Metropolis. Superman accepts his offer and takes Lois on a trip to Maine because she had mentioned wanting to go there recently. Lois notices that Clark still doesn't have peace of mind and isn't able to enjoy the moment with her, so she tells him to go do whatever he needs to, and she'll be fine exploring Maine on her own. Again, this is such a wonderfully written Lois, and considering in a lot of, I see it in comics somewhat, but a lot more in movies and TV adaptations of comics where the love interest or friends of characters get very pissed when those characters have to do anything hero related and are very selfish. So it's nice to see Lois written this way where she's not selfish, she understands Superman, understands what he means to the world and what he needs to do, and I love that. Superman goes to the moon and tries to comprehend the bigger picture of this whole thing by looking at Earth from the outside, but he is quickly interrupted when he hears a small child falling off a skyscraper. He flies there and saves the child, and then goes back to Metropolis and tells Orion he's made a decision. In that moment of saving that child, Superman realized it is impossible for him to stand by and let innocents die. He realized if he just caves into what Orion has told him, he's completely giving up on hope, and he can't do that. Orion does not like Superman's answer, so he attacks him and uses a spell to try to control Superman. We get a really cool scene where Superman walks the reader through how he is trying to resist the spell. Talks about the different types of magic there are that he learned from Zatanna, how after last time he got mind controlled, he asked Martian Manhunter to teach him some resistance techniques, and then he finally, through hearing Jimmy Olsen's voice, he's able to latch on to and use it to break free of the spell. I love this. With a guy that gets mind control as much as Superman because of lazy writing, it's nice to see that, oh, Superman actually went and got some techniques and learned some things to stop himself from being mind controlled and will learn his way out of it. I love that. I think that's great because all the time you see, oh, man, we need the evil Superman to show up. It'd be cool if someone fought Superman here, but it wouldn't make sense for him to fight this guy out of mind control. So I love seeing here that Kurt Busiek's like, well, wouldn't Superman just learn how to stop that from happening? He's a pretty resourceful guy. He's pretty powerful, and we see that in action here. It's great. Then a bunch of souped up government agents show up and start beating up a dazed Superman, attacking Orion. Orion realizes Superman is too strong to enslave and everything is becoming a bit too chaotic for him, so he leaves. Superman regains his senses, fights off the government agents, and flies after Orion. While chasing after Orion, Superman gets hit with a pie from the prankster, and then the JLA and JSA show up thinking Superman is mind-controlled. He convinces the JLA and JSA he fought off the spell, and then he continues to fly after Orion. Another pretty funny scene, because if Superman's mind-controlled, you would have all hands on deck. Be like, oh crap, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's controlling him. Bad things could happen. This could be really, really bad for us. So they're there to fight Superman. Superman has to be like, guys, I'm fine now. I got control. So it's a funny little scene. Superman then gets a visit from the Phantom Stranger, who tells him that what Orion said about dark energy building up around the world is real and not just some trick. Phantom Stranger says that this darkness has been slowly building for years, but he's not sure what is causing it. It's not necessarily, Superman saving people that's causing it. Could be that, but Phantom Stranger is kind of in the dark about it. He's not sure. Superman has been trying to track Orion since their last encounter, but he hasn't had any luck. While looking for him in Machu Picchu's, I love saying Machu Picchu, by the way. Try saying that. Say Machu Picchu right now. It's pretty fun. Anyways, Subject 17 shows up. This time he's much more civilized. He isn't the same raging beast Superman fought before. Subject tells Superman he knows where Orion is, but he won't simply give that information for free. Subject says Orion will hurt humans, kill many. I say is good. So here is choice. You stand for victim or stand for torturers. You choose. Choose alien like yourself or choose them. You want information? Beat it out of me. He then attacks Superman while telling him to join him, giving Superman no option at all, really. Superman even tells Subject this whole make a choice scenario was rigged. He could only really give one answer. Clark's inner monologue shows that he believes that Subject is as fast as him and Subject might even be stronger than him, but that doesn't matter. Clark can't just stand by and let people die. Clark lets off some steam and beats Subject 17 until he yields. Subject says, you get cold inside when angry. Superman, but not wild. And then he reveals Orion's location. I love moments like this with characters like Superman and other powerful characters where they meet someone that's just as strong as them. It's like, oh, they might be stronger, what's going to happen? But then they just kind of will it to win. I love that where it's like, doesn't matter if they're faster, stronger, better than me, more knowledgeable. I can't let them beat me. I love that. I love stuff like that. In comics, movies, everything. It's sick. When done well, of course, and when it makes sense. Orion, we see, is holed up in an ancient Atlantean outpost, shielded off from any unwanted visitors. So Clark does a sick maneuver to hit the magic shield with the full weight of the Atlantic Ocean. It looks really cool. And during this, Clark listens for Lois, and she knows that he's listening. So she tells him to kick this guy's can and come home. I love this moment. Clark is 2 miles deep in the Atlantic Ocean, about to take on this sorcerer that's been getting the better of him, but he's got his ears tuned all the way back in Metropolis, listening for the love of his life, and she knows it. So she tells her husband exactly what he needs to hear. Now it's time for the big battle. Orion remakes himself into some sort of kraken-like creature, and then they brawl. The entire fight, Orion is yelling at Clark that Superman is fighting to end humanity, that he should just give up so humanity can survive. Clark lets him know that giving up isn't exactly something mankind does. Superman is able to defeat Orion by taking all of the items Orion used that stored his power, and he tells Orion, if you're stronger, faster, all that means is that I have to call on my experience, my will. It means I have to be resourceful. Humanity does that all the time, so I beats him by being more human. It's awesome. Arion goes back to Paris in 1659 because he had cast a return spell should he be defeated. So yeah, if he lost, he's able to just quit to the lobby before he loses, you know. We've all been there. Superman flies around Metropolis contemplating what Orion said, realizing that he can't fixate on some possible future. He comes to the conclusion that he will help mankind solve their problems in whatever way he can, and if Orion's prophecies become reality, he'll just have to deal with it when it happens and fight that much harder. Then we get an ominous ending with Kyber, and that's the end of the story. I just love Camelot Falls. It is an amazing story that I think everyone should read. I think Kurt Busiek is really in the zone for this comic for his entire Superman run pretty much, but especially Up and Away and Camelot Falls. He really understands the characters of Clark and Lois and their dynamic and their relationship. And he also understands superhero storytelling really well in this book. Something that I really like that he does is you have this premise of, Superman has something to think about. He gets proposed what's going to happen in the future by this mage that he doesn't know, and he has to think about it. And I feel like some other comic book writers, like maybe some more boring comic book writers, might just have him go around, think about it for a while, and just walk around. But instead, Superman has to think about it while still being Superman. There's still a million different things going on constantly. You have those new gods pop up, which is, granted, that's from Orion, but you have Subject 17 that he has to deal with. You have all these different problems of Metropolis that he has to deal with. There's constant, it's like go, go, go. Superman doesn't get to rest just because he has something heavy on his shoulders. It's not like, oh, this is the storyline, so Superman then has to just focus on what the main thread of the storyline is, which is Orion, the future he proposes. No, he has to deal with that in the back of his head while still protecting Metropolis and the world and doing everything he does, and it's great. And also, it keeps up the action, because that's something that I think gets left behind sometimes in modern superhero comics, where some people want too badly to be sort of a modern Alan Moore, and it's like, what if it's just 9 panels of people talking and that's it? And it's like, no, these are superhero comics, and superhero comics, I want to have some action, It's pretty cool. I enjoy that. I like seeing dudes punch each other, and it's cool for the artist, because I imagine it gets pretty boring just drawing 9 panels of like stuff, not much changing, So yeah, I love Camelot Falls. You should definitely read it if you haven't. My only real issues with it, I only have 2 minor gripes, which is it ends kind of abruptly, which I believe that's because Kurt Busiek had things going on and when he was writing Trinity at the time, where he just picked up Trinity, and then also a Superman run, I believe, ended up getting cut short. So this book kind of it's like it's really good, and it kind of just ends really fast, but still a great comic, and also maybe the worst Lois design ever, but that's also a minor gripe. I don't know what was going on with Lois's hair in this book, but again, you can pick up, there's a nice hardcover edition you can pick up. I got it a while ago where it's in these 2 tiny little hardcovers. But yeah, you can go and pick up the nice big hardcover collection easy, and I highly recommend it, because there's a lot of aspects to the story that I didn't even cover, because I see these videos as showing you a comic book that I love, that I'm trying to get you interested in and telling you why I love it, not me just reading you the story. Not like, all right, son, it's time for bed, I'm going to read you a comic book. It's not like that. It's more of just, me being like, hey, this is really awesome, you should check it out, you should go read it. So there's a lot of stuff in the book that I didn't even cover that I think you would really like if this video interested you at all. But anyways, yeah, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below if you did enjoy it, and also if you've read Camelot Falls, what do you think about it, or if you're gonna read it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.
Hey, skinny boy, saucy boy, I be running to the bank. Yeah, I hit the gas in the whip full tank. Riding past the ocean while I'm listening to Frank.